Hey guys, tonight we slip down a narrow alley in ancient Rome. Not the postcard Rome with its proud columns and golden gods, but the real one. The one that smells like sweat, olive oil, and maybe regret. Oil lamps flicker in carved sconces. Laundry flaps overhead between tenement windows, and the ground squelches slightly beneath your sandals. Don't ask. You brush past a drunk merchant slurring Cicero quotes and a stray cat with a broken ear. Then you see it. The unmistakable symbol of a certain kind of establishment carved right into the stone above the door. A phallus, bold and unashamed, points you in. Welcome to the Suburra, where senators and slaves all come for the same reason. No one's here to debate Stoic philosophy. And you, my friend, are not just visiting. You work here. That's right. Tonight you are a Roman prostitute. And not one of the fancy courtesans in silk, lounging near the Palatine Hill. No, you're one of the tens of thousands just trying to get by. You probably won't survive this decade, so before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop your location and local time in the comments. I love seeing where in the world we're falling asleep together. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Your shift technically started at sundown, but customers rarely respect hours in this part of town. Some nights they bang on the door before you've even lit the lamp. Tonight, you got lucky. A short lull means you can breathe, sit down on your stone bench, and stretch your legs before the next knock. The street is alive. Voices echo from every direction. Bakers shouting, donkeys braying, the hiss of oil frying flatbread on a brazier. Somewhere, a man is playing a flute badly. You can almost smell the mix of incense and fish guts. Here, in the working-class Suburra district, sex is as normal as bread and olives. It's transactional, mechanical, routine. And yet, in every glance, every whispered deal, there's a flicker of something deeper. Hunger, loneliness, power. You know the rhythms of this place. Morning is slow. Afternoon picks up with laborers spending their meager wages. Night? That's when the well-dressed ghosts come out. Senators in disguise, soldiers on leave, poets who pay in verse instead of coin. Don't fall for that again. What's strange is how invisible you are. Everyone knows what you do, but no one says it aloud. Roman society talks about sex a lot, but rarely about the people who sell it. Unless, of course, you're caught in a scandal or mentioned in a satirical poem. Then suddenly, everyone's an expert. Still, you're not entirely without identity. You have a name, though it might not be the one you were born with. Many workers here choose stage names, short, catchy, exotic. Something Greek, maybe. Chloris. Lais. Tigris. You picked yours last year, carving it into the wall above your bed so new customers won't forget. The room? Calling it a room is generous. It's more like a closet with ideas. A small oil lamp, a hard mattress stuffed with straw, and a bucket you do not want to kick over. The stone walls are cool, even in the sweltering heat, and you've decorated them with little charms and etchings. A tiny Venus figurine, some faded graffiti. Felix was here, and your lucky sprig of rosemary nailed into the lintel. That rosemary, it's not just for scent. Some say it wards off bad clients. Others say it hides the smell of your last one. Down the alley, the lupanar, that's Latin for wolf den, buzzes with activity. It's a bit more upscale than your place, with painted frescoes of various acts to inspire the guests. Some customers prefer that kind of theatrical setting. Others like your more personal touch. You spot someone approaching, a man in his 30s, decent sandals, cloak, thrown casually over one shoulder. You brace yourself. But he walks past. Just another dreamer heading home with wine on his breath and love poems in his pocket. You exhale. The brake holds. As you sit back, your thoughts drift. You think about your neighbors. There's Syra, who claims she once serviced an emperor. No one believes her, but we let her talk. There's Varro, who works the docks and always has bruises. And then there's an older woman known only as Auntie, who doesn't work anymore but teaches new girls the ropes. She once told you, smile with your mouth, not your eyes. That way the smile lasts longer. You learned a lot from her. Where to stash your coins, which perfume smells like wealth, and how to read a client's mood from the way he knocks. 3 taps, drunk. 2 sharp raps, married and nervous. A loud bang, soldier, possibly with lice. Sometimes you daydream about leaving, maybe becoming a tavern singer, or even sailing to Egypt, where they say the temples still take in dancers and priestesses. But those are just dreams. For now, you're here, on this bench, with that flickering lamp and the soft hush of the city that never fully sleeps. One of the strangest things about your job is how normal it feels. You eat, you bathe when you can. You do laundry in the Tiber. You have favorite snacks: roasted chickpeas with salt, honeyed dates, boiled eggs dipped in cumin. You gossip about the latest scandal, like that senator's wife caught sneaking into the baths alone. How daring. You even fall in love sometimes. But love is a luxury here. It rarely ends well. Tonight you think of Cassianus. He used to bring you apricots. Said you reminded him of spring. Then his wife found out, and you haven't seen him since. Maybe he's dead. Maybe he's just a coward. Either way, you still have the apricot pit he gave you. It sits in the corner next to your sandals like a fossil of a feeling. A stray dog passes by, nose down, tail wagging. You toss it a crust of old bread and smile when it licks your fingers. Even in the shadows of Rome, kindness finds a way to survive. And then, 3 soft taps. Your break is over. You rise, smooth your tunic, check your hair and a shard of polished bronze. And as you move to open the door, you do what you always do before work begins. You whisper a prayer, not to Jupiter, not even to Venus, but to yourself. Because in this city of gods, only you know what it takes to survive one more night. The door creaks open just enough to see him. Mid-30s, maybe 40, with eyes that dart like a mouse at market. He steps inside quickly as though the act of being seen in your doorway might somehow burn his soul. Typical. Married, probably. Or a minor magistrate hoping no one connects his face to this address. You offer the kind of smile Auntie taught you. Pleasant, polite, unreadable. His breath smells like fennel seeds and guilt. He doesn't make eye contact. That's fine, you've had worse. He leaves after 6 minutes. You wipe down the bench with a rag soaked in cheap vinegar. There's no time to feel anything. You move with the quiet rhythm of someone who has done this 1,000 times. Because you have. And you will again. Morning comes slowly in the Subura. It seeps through the cracks in the ceiling like wine from a cracked amphora. You rise to the sound of shouting. Someone hawking figs. Someone else cursing over a dropped amphora. A baby wails. A rooster tries its best to be majestic and fails miserably. Your back aches. Your mouth tastes like last night's regrets. But there's no time for reflection. Not when bread is 2 asses a loaf and you've got exactly 1.5 in your coin pouch. So what do you do all day? You get up, you stretch, you check your stash of cosmetic paste, chalky stuff made from white lead and vinegar. Historians still argue whether Roman women used it for allure or to mimic high-born paleness, but all you know is that it stings and smells like boiled cabbage. You dab it on your cheeks anyway. Maybe it hides the circles under your eyes. Maybe it makes you look less like the walking version of "don't make eye contact." Then come the preparations. You tie your hair with twine or an old scrap of silk if you're lucky. You rub on scented oil, nothing fancy, just enough to cover the smell of tenement life. You chew on parsley stems to sweeten your breath. It barely helps. Still, it's a routine, and routines are comforting in a city where everything else is chaos. Auntie always said, if you don't look like a goddess, they won't treat you like one. You're not convinced, but you still follow her checklist. You check your modesty garment, thin linen, washed too many times, and slide on your sandals. Not the nice ones with red dye and fancy straps. Those are for when rich clients might appear. These are for morning work, quick visits, regulars, passers-by who want 10 minutes and don't care what your name is. You eat what's left from last night's bread, and maybe an olive or two. Nothing more. A full belly makes you sluggish, and sluggish isn't good when you might need to bolt or bargain. Out on the street, the city is humming. Laundry sways on lines strung between windows. A goat wanders into a shop and gets chased out with a broom. A child cries, then laughs, then cries again. Rome is full of noise, even when it's tired. You head toward the well. The line is already forming, other women, slaves, old men with buckets. You nod at Syra, who works near the baths. She's wearing that ridiculous yellow scarf again, the one she claims makes her irresistible. Maybe it does. You once saw her wink at a praetor and walk away with a silver denarius. You respect the hustle. At the well, the gossip begins. Who's been arrested? Who got pregnant? Who's missing? You listen, you nod, you offer nothing in return. Information is currency, and you never spend unless you have to. On the way back, you pass a street painter sketching dirty cartoons on the wall. One of them looks suspiciously like you. You don't know whether to feel flattered or furious. You choose to laugh, loudly, sarcastically, and keep walking. Back at your room, you do some quick cleaning. Sweep the floor, change the rag on the bench, set out your little tray of trinkets. A borrowed perfume vial, a worn charm against disease, and a small, dull bronze mirror. Presentation is everything. And then, you wait. Mid-morning brings the steady hum of low-tier customers. Delivery boys, day laborers, young soldiers flush with their first wages. They come and go with the regularity of temple bells. Some are kind, some aren't. Some talk too much, others don't speak at all. You keep track in your head, how many visits, how much coin, how long until you can buy that new pair of sandals with the gilded buckles. The ones you saw in the market last week, the ones that screamed, "I've made it," even though they cost more than you earn in 3 days. Every once in a while, you get a break. A regular client might bring food, figs, dried meat, even a bit of cheese if you're lucky. You never ask, but you always accept. In this line of work, you learn to say thank you without letting it sound like a promise. And then there are the odd jobs. A bit of light mending for the tailor 2 doors down, helping a local scribe spell certain words in Greek. Once, you even posed for a mosaic, though the final product made your nose look like a broken turnip. Still, it paid enough to cover laundry soap and half a jar of pickled onions. By midday, the sun is high and the alley bakes like an oven. You close your door and lie down for a moment. Not to sleep, but to rest. To let your body settle, to let your mind drift, to pretend for a moment that you're somewhere else. Maybe on a beach in Sicilia, or in a garden outside Alexandria, or even just in a house with more than one room and fewer than 10 regrets. But the day never pauses for long. A knock pulls you back. 2 raps, sharp, nervous, married, definitely. You adjust your tunic, open the door, and step into the dance once again. Not every moment is bleak. Sometimes clients surprise you. There was a baker once, hands covered in flour, voice soft as honey, who asked if you liked poetry. He recited lines from Ovid and gave you a loaf shaped like a dolphin. You kept the crust for a week before it went moldy. And there was the young man who cried afterward. Just sat on the bench, head in his hands, whispering the name of someone who clearly wasn't you. You didn't charge him the full rate. He left you a silver ring. You still wear it when you need luck. These tiny human moments, they're rare, but they matter. They remind you that beneath the roles, the masks, the sweat, and sarcasm, there are still hearts trying to beat with some rhythm of dignity. Still, you know better than to cling. Rome doesn't allow softness to survive. You can be smart, or you can be sentimental. Rarely both. And softness doesn't pay rent. As the sun begins to sink and the light turns gold on the stone walls, you check your pouch again. 8 asses, a single denarius, and 1 chipped perfume bead. Not bad for a Tuesday. You light the oil lamp. You straighten the bed. You prepare once more. Because night is coming, and that's when the real business begins. You know it's evening when the voices outside change. No more children shouting or vendors hawking dates. Now it's the slow, smooth murmur of silk against skin, of sandals on cobblestones, of men pretending they're not here. Dusk in Rome is a cloak. It hides shame, desire, and coin purses full of denarii. It's also when the real competition begins. You light your second oil lamp, this one with a hint of myrrh in the wick. It gives your cramped space a faintly exotic scent. Part spice, part something vaguely holy. Or so you hope. The point is to suggest mystery. You're not just a woman in a room, you're an experience. You check your tools. There's your rouge, a sticky red paste made from crushed mulberries. You smear it lightly across your lips and cheeks. The stuff smells sweet, but it attracts flies like gossip attracts senators. You also have a small tin of powdered antimony, which you trace along your eyelids for that shadowed, smoky look. Cleopatra style, or as close as you can get without an empire. Your tunic? Swapped out. The simple linen of daytime is gone. Now it's gauzy, slightly sheer, dyed with faded saffron. It once belonged to a retired dancer who claimed she could charm a snake with her hips. You had it taken in. Not because it fits better now, but because tighter means wealthier in this part of town. A bracelet of glass beads goes on your wrist. A drop of wine behind your ears. And most important of all, your charm. It's a small bronze figurine, worn from years of being clutched in sweaty palms. A woman, probably Venus, holding a mirror in one hand and a knife in the other. Auntie gave it to you with a wink. Love and protection in one package. She wasn't wrong. There's danger here. Always. But your biggest weapon? Presentation. You don't have the marble baths of the noblewomen or the silken robes of the courtesans. But you know how to build a moment. You lean in close when you talk. You laugh just a second too long. You trace the rim of a cup with one finger when someone's watching. These are your tools, and you wield them like a seasoned gladiator. But tools don't just mean makeup and gestures. There's practical stuff, too. Condoms? Ha! Rome doesn't have latex. But some women use sheep bladders. Others rely on sponges soaked in vinegar. Your personal method? A rag dipped in pine resin. Not pleasant, but it helps. Sort of. Historians still argue whether these early birth control attempts actually worked or just made women feel like they had some control in a world where they rarely did. You also keep a small pouch of wool soaked in honey. Not for clients. For you. A comfort thing. Something to hold between your palms when your hands are shaking. You tell yourself it smells like safety. There's your wax tablet too. Not for poetry. You use it to keep notes. Who paid, who owes, who you never want to see again, even if Jupiter himself demands it. Discrete symbols, nothing obvious. You don't want a nosy client decoding your shorthand and realizing he's the one marked with a snake. And then there's the graffiti. Your own tiny advertisement carved into the wall just outside your door. It reads, Chloris, sweet wine, soft hands. 2 asses. You wrote it yourself with a rusty nail. Not your best calligraphy, but legible enough. The price is low, yes, but that's to lure them in. Everything else, negotiable. Some women carry small tokens to hand out, like a business card, but Roman style. Clay or lead tags, stamped with their name and maybe a specialty. You've never had the coin for that, but you've seen one. A round disc that said, Felicia, mouth like honey. You laughed so hard you snorted wine. You take one last look at the mirror. Your face is flushed, your eyes rimmed in shadow, your smile half real. Good enough. A knock. It's early for a night client. You debate not answering. But coin is coin. You open the door. He's tall, pale, and smells like pine. A patrician, maybe. His toga is too fine for this neighborhood. Definitely slumming it. You know his type. Bored, rich, playing at danger because his wife won't even look at him anymore. He doesn't ask your name. They never do. He stays longer than most. Not rough, not gentle, just transactional. After he leaves, you sit on the edge of your bed and count the coins. 3 denarii, not bad, not great. Enough for meat tomorrow. You reach for your honey wool and breathe in deeply. Then you tidy, repaint your lips, relight the lamp. There are still hours left in this night. Later, a group of young soldiers comes by. Loud, drunk. One of them throws up in the alley before even making it inside. You send them away. Too risky, too loud. You can't afford to be shut down by the vigils, the Roman watchmen, again. One of the soldiers slips you a small bronze brooch on his way out. For luck, he says. He's missing 2 teeth. You almost smile. There's something beautiful about the contrast here. Outside, the city pulses with power and politics. Inside, in this tiny room, it's simpler, just 2 people. Just breath and skin and coin. That's not to say it's romantic, far from it. But there is something ancient about the transaction. Older than Rome, older than law. It's raw. And sometimes, weirdly, kind. Like the time a client fixed your door hinge. Or the one who braided your hair afterward in silence. Even in a place like this, humanity flickers through. You remember what Auntie said years ago as you scrubbed blood off the bench from a night gone wrong? Tools change. Tricks change. But the real skill is knowing what face to wear. So you gather your tools, and you wear your face. And you keep going, because night in Rome waits for no one. And in this city, survival is an art form. The sun is gone now, fully tucked beneath the rooftops of Rome, and the world has shifted. You can feel it in the air, a different kind of pressure, like the street itself is holding its breath. This is when your clientele changes. The morning boys and nervous husbands are gone. Now come the interesting ones. Tonight's first is already in line. You hear his voice before you see him, booming, full of bravado, probably 3 cups of wine deep. You open the door just enough to spot him. Wide shoulders, sun-weathered skin, the swagger of someone used to barking orders, a centurion by the look of him, or pretending to be one. He leans on the doorway like it owes him something. You don't blink. You've seen worse. You've smelled worse. Evening, Chloris, he grins. Still the softest hands in the suburra? You offer a polite smile, then tilt your head toward the bench. Business is business. It's a short visit. He tips with a bit of dried beef and a joke about Athenians being better in bed. You don't laugh. Not because it isn't funny, but because your stomach is already growling at the sight of real protein. The beef goes into your stash. Tomorrow's breakfast, if you're lucky. After he leaves, you wipe down the bench again, twice. Soldiers are rough, even the ones who think they're gentle. And then comes a different knock. Slower, measured. A light double tap, followed by silence. You know that rhythm. It's Cassianus. Yes, that Cassianus, the married merchant with a face too handsome for his own good, and fingers that smell like cinnamon bark. He hasn't been around in a while, not since his wife reportedly caught him reciting Sappho in his sleep. He walks in like the air belongs to him. Doesn't even glance at the walls, just sits on the edge of the bed like it's his. Still lighting that awful myrrh lamp? He teases, voice like warm wine. You shrug. It covers the smell of regret. He laughs. And for a moment, so do you. Cassianus is different. He always brings something. Dried figs, leftover pastries, a bad poem. Tonight it's a small linen pouch. Inside is a tiny tin of imported coal, dark as volcanic ash. For your eyes, he says, like Cleopatra. You know she's dead, right? You reply. Only officially. You let him stay longer than you should. Not for the coin, though he pays, always, but for the calm. The quiet way he traces the lines in your palm like they're maps to a better city. You almost forget that, come morning, he'll go back to his respectable house with his respectable wife, and act like you never happened. Almost. When he finally leaves, the room feels colder. You sit on the edge of the bed and think about what people don't realize. They don't realize that you see everyone, the cracks in their voices, the bruises they hide, the panic behind their polished words. You've seen senators cry and slaves laugh. You've seen arrogance melt under a soft touch and shame explode in fury. You, more than anyone, know that people are walking contradictions. Take your next client, a wealthy Greek physician, educated, cultured, perfumed to the teeth, and yet he likes to be called donkey in Latin and told he's worthless. Go figure. There's the baker from across the street who always asks to wash your feet. He never wants more. Just kneels quietly, pours warm water from a clay jug, and hums to himself like it's a prayer. You've stopped questioning it. And then there are the slaves, sent by their masters, coins pressed into trembling hands, forced to endure even though they clearly don't want to be there. Those are the hardest nights. You do what you can, you speak gently, you finish quickly, you slip half the coin back when no one's looking. Because despite what people think, this work isn't about desire. It's about power. Who has it? Who pretends to? And who quietly reclaims it behind a locked door? Sometimes you win small, like when a nobleman leaves weeping and calls you a witch, or when a soldier writes your name on a temple wall, not as an insult, but a tribute. Sometimes it feels like losing, like when a client bruises your arm and says it's your fault for being too still, or when another leaves without paying and you know going after him would get you beaten, or worse. But most of the time, it just is. Like breathing, like eating, like pretending you don't notice the way your hands shake when you're alone. Your room tells your story. On the wall, graffiti scrawled by past clients. Chloris laughs like Venus. Best in the block. Don't bring figs, she hates them. You've left them there, a weird kind of resume. There's the crack in the ceiling shaped like a dolphin. You stare at it when you're too tired to move. There's the worn patch on the floor where you kneel to light the lamp. The nail where you hang your tunic. The small jar of ointment from Auntie made of garlic and pig fat, supposed to keep infections away. Historians debate whether it worked. You don't. You use it religiously. Some nights you cry. Not loudly, just enough to water the corner of your straw-stuffed pillow. Other nights, you laugh, really laugh, because a client tried to seduce you with a knock-knock joke or asked if his new hair tonic made him look more Greek. And sometimes, you dream. You dream of a day when you won't have to bargain with your body, of a tiny house with an herb garden, of clean sheets and slow mornings, and someone who brings you apricots just because. You don't believe in fairy tales, but dreams? You allow yourself that. The oil lamp flickers. Outside, the Subura pulses with life. Laughter, footsteps, the distant clang of a dropped amphora. Inside, you pull the curtain shut and settle into your corner, the perfume of coal still clinging to your fingers. Tomorrow will be the same. But for now, for a few short hours, you are alone. And that is a victory. Morning again, like clockwork. Except this time, the sun hits harder. It's summer in Rome, and the heat doesn't politely knock. It barges in, kicks your legs off the bed, and fills every crevice of your tiny room with the smell of hot stone and sweat-soaked linen. You sit up slowly, neck stiff, tongue dry. The lamp's gone out, the air's thick, and you can already hear someone bartering for water outside. Probably the same man who tried to pay you in onions last week. You said no, by the way. You're desperate, not insultable. As you splash water on your face, 2 fingers at a time to save it, you think about your plan for the day, that is, how to survive it. You've made enough to cover food, maybe even a visit to the public baths if things go well. But today, you're thinking about something more ambitious. Raising your rate. You laugh, not out loud, just a little sarcastic twitch of the mouth. You've tried this before. It usually goes like this. You scribble a new price into the wall graffiti, wait confidently for a better class of client to appear, and end up lowering it again by sundown because two gladiators bargained you down with a chicken and half a gourd. Still, maybe today. You step outside to air the room and are greeted by Rome in full swing. Heat rising from the cobbles, a child screaming about a stolen fig, and a merchant yelling that his fish is as fresh as Neptune's bathwater. It isn't. You walk down the street, quickly, head high. Not because you're proud, but because if you don't walk like you own the place, someone's going to grab your backside and say they thought you were inviting it. Spoiler alert, you weren't. You duck into a shady spot near the fountain to rest. That's when Syra joins you. She's chewing on a plum, bright yellow juice dripping down her fingers. Her tunic's hiked up like she's daring the gods to say something about it. Guess who had a senator's son last night? She purrs. Did he cry afterward? You ask. Worse. He quoted Virgil, mid-thrust. You both cackle until your ribs hurt. Moments like this are rare, but precious. Your coworkers, your sisters in arms, are the only ones who understand what this job actually cost. Not just physically, but emotionally, mentally. The daily performance, the constant calculations, the tightrope walk between power and vulnerability. Back at your room, you tidy again. It's part ritual, part necessity. A crooked painting gets re-straightened. You air out the linens with a shake that sends dust motes dancing through the sunbeam. You even pause to sharpen the stylus you use for your wax tablet. You've had your eye on a new message to scratch into the graffiti. Chloris. Better than your wife. Cheaper than your divorce. Too far? Maybe, but it would stand out. Then someone knocks. Not a client. Not yet. It's Basso, the young messenger boy from the bakery. He's holding a note. And bread. The note is from one of your regulars, a junior scribe named Livius. Sweet, awkward, way too into astrology. The message is scribbled hastily. 2 broke this week. Will come next Saturday. Left you bread. Hope you don't hate me. You don't. Livius always brings something extra. Last time it was a copper hairpin with a tiny crescent moon etched into it. He told you, dead serious, it's for lunar alignment. You wore it anyway. You bite into the bread, it's hard as brick, but it's food, and it tastes like kindness. Which brings you to the topic no one likes to discuss. Payment. How much does a Roman prostitute actually charge? It depends. Some nights it's a few asses. Enough to buy half a chicken or a cup of wine. Other nights, if the client's drunk, distracted, or trying to impress someone imaginary, you might score a denarius. That's big money. A day's wage for a laborer. Enough to buy meat, oil, bread, and even soap. But that's rare. Most of the time, you're bartering. Coins, favors, gossip, dried fruit, or the occasional hand-me-down tunic. Once, a client gave you a necklace made of carved bone. You wore it until the clasp snapped. Another gave you a half-written play about a lusty centurion. You kept it for laughs. There's no fixed menu. Services are negotiable. Kisses cost extra. So does eye contact, unless they're the clingy type, in which case you charge double. Some men ask for strange things, like just holding your hand, or talking about their dead mother, or reciting riddles while you pretend to laugh. One man asked you to insult him in Greek. You don't speak Greek, so you said the names of vegetables in a mean tone. He loved it. And then sometimes, someone just wants to talk. They come in, sit down, and unload years of pain, shame, and longing. Those sessions are often the most exhausting. There's no physical act to distract from the emotional weight. Just you, holding space for someone whose wife won't listen, whose job is a trap, whose life is empty. And yet, you charge them like anyone else. Because your time is valuable. You tell yourself that a lot. It's a mantra, a spell. Your time is valuable. Your time is valuable. Your time is valuable. Even when the world says otherwise. Even when the law brands you as infamous. Legally lower than a slave. No rights to inherit, no ability to testify in court. Just a body in a room with a price tag. Historians still debate how strictly these laws were enforced. Some say sex workers were tolerated as long as they stayed in their lane. Others argue that the social stigma was harsher than any legal penalty. You don't care what the scrolls say. You live it every day. And yet, here you are, alive, working, laughing with Kyra, eating bread from Livius, planning a new graffiti slogan. They don't get to write your story. You do. So today, you scratch it into the wall. Not the divorce joke. Just this. Chloris still standing. And for a brief, flickering moment, that's enough. It's late afternoon now, and the shadows stretch long across the cobblestones, like lazy cats draped across the city. The heat begins to loosen its grip, and you step out into the alley to catch the first hint of breeze. You can feel it in your skin, the subtle shift that signals another round of business is on the horizon. You don't have to go far to find tonight's stage. The Lupinar is calling. You've worked there before. Everyone has. Not every night, but enough to know its rhythms. Enough to remember the slick chill of stone beds and the smell of damp plaster and old perfume. The place is famous, or infamous, depending on who you ask. In Pompeii, it was the jewel of Roman vice, and people still talk about it centuries later. But there are places just like it scattered throughout Rome, hidden in plain sight behind taverns, under bathhouses, even tucked between bakeries. You tighten your belt, gather your things, and head toward the nearest one. From the outside, it looks like nothing, just another worn archway leading into dim corridors. But inside, it's another world. Murals line the walls. Frescoes, faded but vivid enough to leave no doubt about the services on offer. Lovers in tangled limbs. Women reclining with painted smiles. Men with proportions that, let's just say they'd break statues. Each room has a stone bed, built into the wall like a tomb. There's no mattress, just a thin layer of straw and whatever linens you bring with you. The walls are covered in graffiti from clients and workers alike. Crude sketches, bad poetry, names and dates like some strange lover's ledger. You find an open room, toss your scarf across the edge of the bed to mark your spot, and settle in. Here it's first come, first served. You don't book clients, you catch them. Outside the door, a small oil lamp hangs in an alcove. You light it, your silent signal that you're open for business. And then, the waiting begins. People drift in, some curious, some confident, some clearly lost but pretending otherwise. A couple of soldiers swagger by, arguing over who'll go first. A merchant with stained fingers peers into each doorway, evaluating the options like fruit at market. Eventually, one chooses you. He's young, barely more than a boy, cheeks still dusted with the last traces of adolescence. He fumbles with his coins. You nod gently, help him into the room, and speak in the calmest voice you can muster. It's over quickly. He leaves blushing. You sit back, let out a breath, and eye the mural across from you. A woman holding a man's face with surprising tenderness for a painting. You wonder who painted her, whether she was based on someone real, whether the artist ever loved her or just used her as a prop. The room smells like lamp smoke and sweat. You sprinkle rose water on the straw, a small comfort. The door creaks open again. This time, it's a regular. You know him by the way he coughs before entering, as if asking for permission. He's older, wears a signet ring, and always pays in advance. Never asks for anything strange. Never stays long, but always leaves a small token. A sprig of mint, a folded ribbon, once even a piece of amber. Tonight it's a tiny clay bead. You add it to your pouch and smile politely as he exits. Then comes the rush. The Lupinar, after dark, turns into something between a marketplace and a festival. Except instead of oranges and garlands, it's desire and desperation on sale. You see familiar faces. Syra already entertaining two men at once with exaggerated moans and laughter. Sura, the dancer-turned-worker, spinning scarf like a flag of seduction. An auntie, in the corner, not working anymore, but still watching, still whispering advice to the younger ones. A client walks past, glances into your room, then steps back with a grin. It's Eborius. You roll your eyes instinctively. He's a poet, or at least he thinks he is. He never pays in coin, only verse. And it's bad. Really bad. Rhymes like Venus with penis. Once tried to compare your hips to the Tiber. You still haven't forgiven him. Fair chloris, he intones, bowing dramatically at your doorway. Will you entertain a sonnet tonight? I'd rather entertain the plague, you reply, not unkindly. He laughs and moves on. Still, some part of you is flattered. Maybe it's nice to be immortalized in terrible poetry, even if it's only recited to drunk dock workers. Later, there's a commotion. A client tries to leave without paying. You hear shouting, scuffling, and the unmistakable sound of someone hitting the floor. 2 workers drag him back in, remove his belt, and negotiate a new fee. He pays. Barely anyone looks up. This is normal here. You keep your head down, your tone soft, your smile practiced. You survive. In the lull between clients, you sip watered wine from a chipped cup and share a bite of honeyed fig with Ira. She whispers the latest gossip. Someone in the city's upper crust was caught frequenting boys instead of girls. A scandal is brewing. You shake your head. They act like it's shocking. Only when it's not profitable, she replies. The Lupinar closes at the 3rd watch, somewhere after midnight, when the lamps burn low and the straw beds are sticky and silent. You gather your things, douse your lamp, and make your way home, body sore, purse a little heavier. You walk past temples, closed shops, and sleeping dogs. The city looks peaceful in this light. Almost holy. You know it's a lie, but still, it's a beautiful one. Back in your room, you count your coins. 11 asses, 1 denarius, 3 copper beads. Enough for soap, enough for food, enough to keep going. You hide the money in your secret spot, beneath the loose stone in the floor. Not because you're paranoid, but because you've been robbed before. Once by a client, once by a fellow worker, once by a rat, believe it or not. Ate half your bread and carried off a whole bronze coin. You still have no idea how. As you lie back, staring at the ceiling crack shaped like a dolphin, your thoughts drift. How many people pass through the Lupinar tonight? Dozens? Hundreds? And how many of them will pretend it never happened in the morning? That's the irony of your work. Everyone wants you at night. No one sees you by day. But you see them. You see it all. The next morning, the world wakes with a cough. Literally. Someone outside your window, probably the spice vendor with a chronic garlic hangover, is hacking like he swallowed a bee. You groan and roll over, pulling the sheet over your head, but it's no use. Rome doesn't care if you slept 2 hours. Rome never waits. You sit up slowly, limbs aching, joints creaking like an old tavern stool. A whiff of stale perfume and burnt oil hits your nose. Last night's scent, still lingering in the air like an uninvited guest. Your throat's dry, your eyes sting. Your purse is heavier, yes, but your soul feels 2 ounces lighter. You glance at the wall. There's your scratch graffiti. Chloris still standing. You smirk. Damn right you are. Today you have a different kind of business to deal with. Not a client, a magistrate. Well, technically he's not your problem yet, but rumors are swirling like flies around a fig cart. The city wants to clean up the Sabura. Too many complaints, too many scandals, too much pleasure being had in a city built on conquest and contracts. You've been through this before. Rome likes its pleasure, but only when it's quiet, discreet, taxed. Ah, yes, the taxes. That's where the law slithers in. See, under Emperor Caligula, who had more bedroom stories than a furniture catalog, Rome introduced an actual tax on sex work. He wanted the state to profit off vice. According to gossip, he even tried to set up a state-run brothel. You don't know if that part's true, but you do know your coin pouch feels a little lighter every time tax season comes around. You're supposed to register with the authorities. Declare your status as a meretrix, the Roman legal term for a sex worker. If you're lucky, they give you a little bronze plaque or stamp to show you're official. If you're unlucky, they brand you on your arm, your back, your forehead. Some say it was voluntary branding. Historians still argue whether women chose it for protection or were forced into it as a mark of shame. Either way, you've seen it. A girl named Lupa down the block had the word Lupa burned into her shoulder. You asked her once if it hurt. She said, "Not as much as being invisible." That's the other side of the law. You're both protected and condemned. Registered workers can't be assaulted without punishment, in theory. But you're also banned from marrying Roman citizens, from inheriting land, from most public privileges. Infames, that's what they call you. Literally, without reputation. You're lower on the social ladder than a thief or a gladiator. You can't testify in court. You can't serve in the temples, and no matter how much money you save, you'll never escape that label. Still, you pay the tax, because not paying means prison, or worse. Some women get clever. They pretend to be dancers or musicians or fortune tellers. Anything to dodge the label. You knew one girl, Hestia, who pretended to be a midwife. Got caught because she kept fainting at the sight of blood. You wonder sometimes if there's any job a woman can do in Rome without being accused of something. Well, maybe priestess, but even they have rules. You remember your neighbor, an older woman named Fausta, who used to be a Vestal virgin. Sacred, untouchable. Sworn to 30 years of celibacy in exchange for prestige and political immunity. She lasted 25 years before getting caught with a scribe behind the temple. They buried her alive. So much for holiness. You think about all these things as you walk to the market. The streets are buzzing, full of vendors and slaves and arguing couples. A senator rides by in a litter, eyes straight ahead like he doesn't see the woman with her breast out nursing a child, or the beggar missing 3 fingers. Rome has rules, but Rome also has blind spots. You trade your coins for essentials, barley, soap, salted olives. You pass on the figs, still bitter about that one client who promised poetry and brought nothing but sticky fruit. At a stall near the baths, you spot something strange. A carved ivory amulet, shaped like a winged phallus. You blink. Yes, it's real. Romans believed in fascinum, phallic charms used to ward off evil. They're everywhere once you know to look. Hanging from necks, painted on walls, even dangling from children's necklaces. Because apparently nothing says divine protection like airborne genitals. You buy a small one, bronze, a little chipped. You tell yourself it's for safety, but secretly it makes you laugh. Back in your room, you hang it near your doorway, right above the old sprig of rosemary. Venus above, rosemary below. Now your room smells like a very flirty salad. The evening creeps in again, and as you light your lamp, you wonder if the magistrate will show tonight. He's been circling your street for days, not as a client, at least not openly, but with that tight-lipped expression and a wax tablet clutched in his hand like a sword. Sure enough, there's a knock. Not a client's knock, no rhythm, no breath behind it. Just 2 sharp taps like the law itself has shown up wearing sandals. You open the door, it's him. Thin, pale, balding. A toga that's seen better days. He sniffs like he disapproves of your curtain color. "I'm conducting a census," he says without meeting your eye. Names, rates, methods. You nod slowly, offering him a stool, not out of politeness, but strategy. If he sits, he talks longer. If he talks longer, he gets distracted. And distraction is power. As he scribbles into his tablet, you answer his questions with half-truths and full confidence. Yes, you're registered. No, you've never had a complaint. Of course you pay your taxes. Would you like a fig? He declines. Figures. He asks your specialty. You lean in and whisper, "Making bureaucrats uncomfortable." He flushes and quickly packs up. When he's gone, you collapse in a quiet heap of laughter. Syra hears it from across the way and joins in. "You going to be in the Acta Diurna tomorrow?" she teases. "Only if they print his blushes in red ink." For now, the crisis is averted, but the reminder lingers. You're not just running a business. You're navigating a minefield of laws, stigma, taxes, and expectations. You light another lamp, repaint your lips, check your bronze amulet. Let the magistrates come. You've survived worse. Some afternoons move like honey. Slow, sticky, with a faint hint of something rotting underneath. This is one of those. You sit cross-legged on the cool stone floor of your room, picking olive pits from a cracked plate and watching the dust swirl lazily in a shaft of sun. Your body aches in places you stopped naming long ago, and your mind is too tired for worry. You're in that liminal Roman hour, too late for errands, too early for business. A pocket of time where the city hums but doesn't yet growl. And in that rare quiet, you feel something strange. You feel free. So you do what you almost never do. You pause. You pick up your stylus and wax tablet, not to count clients or tally coins, but to doodle. Little spirals, a palm tree, a cat that looks more like a squid. You're no artist, but something about making anything that isn't for someone else feels like rebellion. You hear a knock. Not at your door, next door. Syra's. It's a soft knock, familiar. You peek through your curtain. It's him again. The young stonemason. The one with arms like temple pillars and a voice like gravel soaked in wine. He visits Syra often, but never as a client. Just brings her food, helps fix her shutter when it squeaks. One time he carried her to the fountain when she had a fever. You call him the exception. He's a reminder that affection in this city is not always currency. Sometimes, rarely, it's just real. You feel something warm stir in your chest. Not jealousy. Not quite, just longing. You used to have someone like that. Once? Cassianus, maybe. Or before him, that glassblower who gave you a red bead and said it matched your anger. He left when his shop burned down. Or maybe he just ran out of beads. You lie back on your mat, arms stretched out, and imagine not what it'd be like to be his wife, but what it'd be like to just sit beside someone, without pretense, without performance. But here, everything is performance. Even lunch. Speaking of which, it's time to eat. You pull out your stash, a crust of bread, 2 olives. Half a dried fig you're unsure about. You chew slowly, eyes closed, savoring each bite like it's part of a ritual. Because it is. Eating alone is a small act of rebellion. It means you weren't chosen by a client. It means for one moment, your body is just yours. You hear giggling outside. 2 young women, new to the trade, fresh-faced and overconfident, are trading compliments like candy. One wears her tunic off one shoulder. The other has added coal dots beneath her eyes, a look that's either seductive or confusing. You were like that once. Thought if you flirted just right, dressed just so, you could game the system. Rise above it. Be chosen by someone powerful, swept away into a villa with marble columns and citrus trees. Now you know better. Still, they look happy. You smile just a little. Your thoughts are interrupted by a knock. This one's yours. You rise, brush crumbs from your lap, and open the door. He's standing there with a nervous grin and a bag of chestnuts. A gift, he says, for your time. You recognize him. A client from months ago. Quiet, awkward, paid extra for silence. You nod, take the chestnuts, and wave him in. The visit is simple. No requests, no theatrics. Just warmth and a long exhale at the end. After he leaves, you roast the chestnuts on a small clay dish over your lamp flame. The room fills with their nutty aroma, rich, sweet, real. You share them with Kyra, who appears like a ghost with wild hair and a sunburned shoulder. Got a lover now? She teases, munching a chestnut. Just a quiet man with good tastes, you say. She nods. That's rarer than gold. You both laugh, then fall into a rhythm of chatter and silence. You talk about everything and nothing. About the vendor who sings like a donkey in distress. About the rumor that a wealthy widow in the Aventine is hiring a personal companion. About the best street corner for catching perfume traders on payday. And then, quietly, about love. Not romantic love, but the kind you build with people who see you as more than your price. Auntie, the stonemason, the girl who lent you her shoes when yours broke, the kid who brings you figs and runs away blushing. These flickers of connection, they're rare, but they matter. Even here in the alleys of Rome, especially here. As the afternoon slides toward evening, you clean up, relight your lamps, and prepare for the next round. But you move a little slower, a little softer. Because for once, you remember, you are not just a service. You are a person. And somewhere out there, someone gave you roasted chestnuts with no strings attached. In Rome, that's a miracle. The scent hits you before the client does. A thick, cloying cloud of myrrh, goat sweat, and something citrusy. Maybe orange rind or sour wine left in the sun too long. You're mid-stretch, rubbing a cramp out of your shoulder when the knock comes. 3 fast raps, full of energy and zero shame. You open the door to a man wearing an embroidered tunic, 2 sizes too small, and a smile 2 sizes too large. "Chloris!" he booms, throwing his arms wide like he's greeting a long-lost friend instead of a tired woman with a perfumed rag in one hand. You force a pleasant smile. "Come in." He ducks under your curtain like a rooster entering a hen house, immediately taking up all the air in the room with his stories, his gestures, his sweat. This one talks. A lot. As he prattles on something about a donkey race gone wrong and his cousin's failed wine press. You nod, sprinkle a little rose water on the sheets, and mentally escape. You have to. It's survival. Your brain floats to your favorite place, an imaginary garden, somewhere far outside the walls of Rome. There's lavender in the breeze, fresh bread, a breeze that isn't laced with garbage fire smoke, and, blessedly, no talking. Eventually he tires himself out. You see him off with a courteous nod, shut the door, and finally breathe. You're not even angry, just tired. Sometimes it's not the work that wears you down, it's the pretending. You collapse on your bench, limbs sprawled, head tilted to catch the breeze from the alley. And that's when you notice it. A scent, not goat sweat. Something softer, gentler. Lavender? Number sage. You lean forward and realize it's coming from the small charm bag you tucked above the door. One of Auntie's little gifts, sewn from old tunic scraps and filled with dried herbs. A protection spell, she called it, for when the air turns heavy and your spirit gets thin. You believe in it a little because, honestly, everything helps. You rest a moment longer, then tidy the room. It's part of the rhythm now. Wipe the bench, shake out the cloth, light a new lamp wick, wash your hands in vinegar and water, twice. And before the next client arrives, you take a moment to check your charms. Yes, charms. You've got a small collection now, all tucked into a clay bowl on your shelf. A carved bone tooth from a lion. Fake, probably. Still cool. A pebble shaped exactly like a heart. You found it outside the bathhouse, a strip of linen with a protection prayer written in tiny, crabbed script. A tiny wooden phallus, you don't ask questions. And your most treasured, a bronze defixio, a curse tablet. You didn't write it, you found it. One night, walking near the cemetery walls, you stumbled across a scrap of lead folded in half, wedged into a crack in the stone. You opened it. Inside, scratched in frantic Latin, was a curse. Not on you. On someone named Aurelius, son of Vibia. It read, "May his heart rot, his wine sour, and his loins burn with longing never returned." You liked the poetry. You kept it. And while you're not exactly in the business of curses, there's something comforting about knowing someone else was angry enough to write that. Even if it was 200 years ago. Magic in Rome is strange. Officially, it's frowned upon. But unofficially, everyone does it. Soldiers wear lucky rings. Midwives chant incantations over births. Even the emperor consults astrologers before marching into battle. And in your line of work? Magic is everywhere. Syra wears an amulet with a crescent moon carved from cowbone. She swears it keeps away disease. Sura carries a vial of river water from the Nile, given to her by a client who claimed it made her immortal. She's definitely not. Auntie once smeared a paste made of garlic and boar fat on your doorframe to keep out demons. It kept out clients for 2 days. Still, you didn't wash it off right away. Some girls light incense, others burn hair clippings. One even tried reading palms until she told a client he'd die early, and he actually did. Now she only reads fig leaves. You don't judge, because in this life, hope matters, even if it smells like goat fat and ash. Later that evening, a client asks if you'll read his fortune. You blink. With what? He shrugs. Your eyes? You roll them. That'll cost extra. He laughs. Pays anyway. You light a candle, pull out a small dish, and drop in 3 chicken bones left from lunch. You make up a story about triangles of fate and the curve of Mars. He leaves convinced he'll marry a foreign princess by spring. You feel only mildly guilty, but hey, he believed it, and he tipped well. You add oracle to your growing list of talents, right under masseuse, actress, and therapist with boundaries. Later, as the night deepens and the lamps burn low, you whisper a quiet prayer. Not to Jupiter, not to Venus, to the old spirits, the street gods, the ones who watch over alleyways and cracked ceilings and women with tired hands. You ask them for 3 things: that your body stays strong, that your wit stays sharper than your client's, and that no one writes a curse tablet with your name on it. You press the pebble heart to your chest and fall into a light doze. Because in Rome, even a nap between clients feels like magic. By now, you've learned the rhythm of this life like the back of your hand, though the back of your hand has more calluses than you'd like to admit. There's a certain routine to it all. Prepare, perform, recover, repeat. And yet, there are days, nights where the script goes off book. Today is one of those. It starts with shouting. Not the usual street din, but a sharp guttural yell followed by a heavy thud. You're already moving before the second noise. Muscle memory from a life spent in places where raised voices often mean raised hands. You peek through your curtain just in time to see Varro, one of the men who works at the docks and sometimes the doorsteps, stumbling backward from his spot on the steps, lip bloodied, eyes wide. A younger worker, one of the new ones from across the courtyard, stands over him, breathing hard. You don't catch what was said, but you catch what it meant. Someone stole a client, again. It happens all the time. Irregular strays. A new girl undercuts the price. Or worse, someone lies, says another girl is sick or has a rash, and poaches her cue. The streets of Rome are brutal, but the world of the meretrices? It's a coliseum without the lions. You saw it last week too, Sura and a girl from the Aventine trading insults sharp enough to peel fruit. Sura won, of course. Her tongue is a weapon blessed by Mercury himself. But the fallout lasted days. Clients picked sides, whispers spread, and one man tried to charge both of them half price as punishment for unladylike behavior. You wanted to drop a chamber pot on his head. But that's the thing. Competition is constant, and it's not just price. It's looks, skills, gossip, location. The closer your room is to the fountain, the better your chances. Being near a bakery helps too. Warm bread and warm bodies go hand in hand, apparently. Even perfume matters. The girl who works 2 doors down from you started using a cinnamon sage blend. Suddenly her queue doubled. You're still bitter about it. There are only so many coins to go around, and too many hands reaching for them. It doesn't help that clients are fickle. They want new, they want exciting. You could give the same man the same service 3 times in a row, and the 4th time he'll declare you not as good as before and disappear for a month. So what do? You evolve. You watch the others. You listen to their stories. You pick up tricks and tweak your own. Like Syra's laugh, light, flirty, never too much. Or Auntie's famous 3-word pause where she lets a man fill in the blanks with his own fantasy. Or Sura's way of looking directly into a client's eyes while saying nothing. Just watching them. Like she knows their secrets already. You steal a little from each. Because in this game, survival isn't about brute strength. It's about subtle power. That doesn't mean the battles are all clever little games. Number. Sometimes it gets messy. Hair pulling. Face slapping. Rumors. Jealousy. Someone steals your perfume, tears your tunic, spreads a lie about you and a senator's son. One time, someone even slipped rotten eggs into your room while you were out bathing. You came back to a stench that lasted 3 days. The worst part? You never even found out who it was. But there's a kind of unspoken code, too. A quiet alliance among those who've been around the longest. You, Syra, Auntie, a few others. You don't interfere unless it gets dangerous, but you watch each other's backs, slip warnings when trouble walks in, share vinegar water and gossip. Pretend not to hear when someone cries in the middle of the day, because deep down, you all know something the rest of Rome refuses to admit. You are not competition. You are community. And you have no one else. Later that evening, you get a surprise visit. A new girl, young, hair in a messy braid, cheeks flushed from either nerves or wine. "I'm sorry," she says, breathless. I heard you were kind." You raise an eyebrow. "That's a dangerous rumor." She smiles shyly. "Still true?" You sigh, gesture her in. She doesn't need much, just a place to sit, a cup of water, a breath of calm. Her name is Livia. She came from the countryside. Her uncle promised her a job in a bakery. She found out the bakery was just a front for a brothel she ran. She's scared. You don't say, "You'll get used to it," because no one should. Instead, you say, "You're not alone." She nods. Stays a little longer. Leaves with a piece of your bread and the directions to Auntie's room. You watch her go. She won't last long, you think. She's too soft. Or maybe she'll outlast you all. Rome is funny that way. Later, you run into Sura at the bathhouse. She's soaking her feet in a tub of warm rosemary water, eyes closed, humming something off-key. When she sees you, she pats the spot beside her. "You hear about Vero?" she says. You nod. "Got his nose busted. Tried to steal a client." "Should have known better," she says, rubbing a pumice stone over her heel. "That new girl has elbows sharper than mine." You both laugh, then silence. Comfortable. Until Sura says, voice lower, "Sometimes I dream I'm just a cook." You glance over. "A cook?" You echo. "Yeah, in a tavern. Elbows deep in dough, smelling like garlic and flour instead of..." She trails off. You nod. You get it. "Sometimes I dream I'm invisible," you say. Not erased, just unnoticed. Not looked at like a transaction. She leans back and says, "Maybe next life." You murmur, "Maybe." The moment passes. Back in your room, you light the lamps. Clients will come. But for now, you stare at your reflection in the bronze shard. You don't look powerful. You don't look rich. But you're still here. You survived another day in a world that forgets your name the moment you close the door. And that? That's a kind of victory no one can steal. It's late again. Not just night, late. The hour where even the drunkest soldiers have stumbled home, and the streets go eerily quiet. The lamps sputter, the air cools, the city exhales. You should be asleep, but you're not. You're wide awake, back pressed to the wall, knees pulled to your chest. Because today, something happened. It was supposed to be normal. Just another client. Middle-aged, neatly dressed, smelled like parchment and old leather. A scribe, maybe. He paid in advance. He smiled. But halfway through, he said something. "You know," he whispered, breath hot against your cheek. "You'd be worth twice as much if you kept your mouth shut." You didn't flinch. You didn't respond. You just finished, like always. Quick, efficient, quiet. But the words stayed. They stuck. Because you've heard worse. Gods, you've lived worse, but this? It cut in a way that surprised you. Maybe because it wasn't violent. Maybe because it was casual. Tossed out like a coin, not meant to leave a mark, but it did. It made you think about worth, about respect. Because here's the truth they never tell you. Sometimes it's not the act itself that hurts. It's how little it's treated like it means anything. Like you mean anything. A thing to rent. A body with no voice. A woman who vanishes once the curtain falls. And yet, there are exceptions. Rare ones. Glimmering through the grime. You remember the merchant from Ostia who always asked your opinion before anything else. Who once brought you a scroll of poetry and said, "Tell me which one makes you feel something." You remember the widow who visited you in secret just to be held. No questions, no coins. Just warmth and tears and silence. You remember the teen boy who came in trembling, still shaking from some awful initiation, who clutched your hand like it was the only real thing left in the world. And for every one of those, dozens of others. Most forget you within minutes. Some try not to look you in the eye. A few don't even learn your name. But here's what they don't expect. That you remember them. You remember their voices, their smells. The way their fingers twitched when they lied. The way their eyes darted when they said they weren't married. You carry their stories like invisible tattoos. Some bruises, some flowers, some just smudges in the dark. Because this isn't just a job, it's witnessing. You see the real Rome, not the marble one, not the version sung about by poets or carved into temples. You see the underbelly, the cravings, the fears, the truths no one dares to say aloud. And despite what that scribe said, your mouth is not your weakness. It's your weapon. You talk to clients. You ask questions. You joke. You tease. You make them think. Sometimes that earns you less coin. Sometimes it gets you in trouble. But it also keeps you human. And humanity is the one thing this city keeps trying to take from you. That evening, you go outside to breathe. The alley's empty. Just the quiet drip of a leaky jug and the distant flicker of temple torches. You sit on a low step and pull your scarf tighter around your shoulders. Syra joins you after a while, wordless, handing you a fig. She doesn't ask. She knows the signs. "You ever think we're ghosts?" you whisper. She tilts her head. "We slip through doors. We listen. We disappear. No one sees us unless they need something." She pops the fig into her mouth and chews slowly. "If we're ghosts," she says, "we're the kind that bite back." You laugh. It surprises you. Maybe that's the point. You head back inside, brush your hair, light the last of your oil, and lie on your bench. But instead of sleeping, you pull out your wax tablet. You start a list. Things that make me real. The scar on my knee from slipping at the baths. The way my left eyebrow lifts when someone lies. The fig Syra gave me. The poem I wrote at 13. The smell of mint when I miss home. My voice. You stare at the list until the wax shines silver in the low light. Then, on impulse, you scratch something beneath it. I'm not for sale. I'm for survival. It's cheesy. It's melodramatic. But it's yours, and that's enough. The next day, you wake up with a new idea. A stunt, a trick, a tiny bit of rebellion. You paint your lips red, bright red, like royal robes, like warning signs. You tie your tunic with a gold thread. You dust your shoulders with powdered iris root. You don't look like a worker, you look like a mistress, and when the first client comes, he stares. "You look expensive," he mutters. You lean forward. "I am." He pays extra. It's not just the look, it's the confidence. The kind of swagger usually reserved for senators and gladiators. But you've earned it. Every scratch on your door, every curse whispered in secret, every scar beneath your tunic says so. That afternoon you pass by your own graffiti. You stop. It still says, "Chloris still standing." You smile. Then with your stylus you add, "Still speaking." Let them try to silence you. You've got curses, charms, lipstick, and a memory sharper than any dagger. Rome isn't ready, but you are. You never really think about the people around your job until you have to. Sure, your work happens behind closed curtains, but the city doesn't run without middlemen. Or middlewomen. Or, in many cases, middle-somethings who blur the lines between landlord, employer, and threat. Today, you're dealing with one. His name is Silvanus. He calls himself a manager, but everyone knows the truth. He's a pimp. Doesn't wear a badge, doesn't wave a flag. He just exists like mildew or taxes. You didn't start with him. You tried the self-employed route, but rooms in the Subura don't rent themselves, and street safety comes at a price. So now, here you are, handing over a chunk of your earnings every week for the privilege of not being harassed by his friends, or worse. Silvanus is slick. Always smells like wine and fennel. Smiles like a man who's never been hit hard enough. Today, he shows up in your doorway with two demands: rent and a suggestion that you smile more for the wealthier clients passing through. You give him the coins. You do not. Give him the smile. He doesn't push it. Just taps your doorframe with a gold ring and moves on to Syra's room. You exhale slowly. Landlords, pimps, guards, street boys who want a cut for watching your door. Everyone has a handout. Everyone wants a slice of your body without touching it. That's the part they never talk about, the cost of operating. Even in the city of gods, protection is rarely divine. Sometimes you envy the women who work under madams instead. It's not better, but it's different. A matron with a house, rules, curfews, fees. Stability if you can stomach the structure. You knew a girl, Callista, who worked in one of those big villas on the Aventine. Clean sheets, bread every day, uniforms even, but no freedom. Callista once told you, it's like being a bird in a gilded cage. Pretty, fed, and always watched. You prefer your alley, even if it leaks. Even if your bench creaks and the roof whistles when it rains. Because here, the rules are yours, even if they change daily. The clients don't always realize there's a chain above them. They think you're independent. That what they pay goes to you, and some of it does. Enough to eat, wash, occasionally treat yourself to the bathhouse or a ribbon. But most of it filters upward. Pimps, landlords, bribed guards. And then there's the city. The taxman doesn't knock with the same swagger as Silvanus, but his smile is worse. Like he's enjoying the math a little too much. Rome officially taxes sex work under the Lex Julia. Officially, but in reality, it's an excuse to know where you are, who you're seeing, how much you're worth, and how to control you. You pay. Of course you do. Because the alternative is arrest, or exile, or worst of all, being moved to the Piscina Publica, the state-run bathhouse where they send women who've been overly generous without paying their dues. No one comes back from the piscina the same, so yes, you pay. But you remember. You remember who takes what and when. You keep your own records, coded, buried in your wax tablet. Not names, not exactly. Symbols, shorthand. A tiny sketch of a lizard for the tax clerk who touches too long. A scratch spiral for the landlady who lies about water costs. A crescent for Silvanus. You don't write their names, you carve them. Because someday you might need leverage. Auntie taught you that. Never blackmail, just collect. But sometimes collecting isn't enough. Because while the men in power pretend to be distant from your work, many of them are deeply involved. Senators with secret stashes of trinkets from their favorite girls. Magistrates who visit in disguise, then pass laws condemning the same behavior. Priests who scold you by day and sneak in by night. Rome is hypocrisy dressed in marble. And you? You see behind the statue? Tonight you have a visitor. Not a client. A girl named Mira. Young, new, scared. She sits on your bench, eyes wide, fingers trembling. He said if I didn't pay double this week, he'd... She doesn't finish. You don't need her to. You've heard it before. Silvanus is tightening the screws. Maybe he's short on his own rent. Maybe he's just bored. You offer Mira a sip of wine, a piece of cheese, a small mirror to hold because looking at herself reminds her she's real. And then you do what no one ever did for you. You teach her. You show her how to track her coins, how to fold a wax tablet to hide notes inside, how to tell the difference between a client who brags and one who breaks. You tell her where to stand for better foot traffic, how to fake laughter without opening your throat too wide, how to avoid the soldiers who think a coin buys your silence, not just your time. She listens like she's drowning and you're tossing her a rope. You don't say it aloud, but you feel it in your bones. This girl, she's going to make it. And maybe, just maybe, she'll do better than you. After she leaves, you sit alone in your room. You light the lamp. You pull out your wax tablet. And for the first time in weeks, you don't write a tally or a fake name. You draw a flame. Tiny, crooked, but burning. Because that's what you are. Not just a woman, not just a worker. A witness. A keeper of stories too raw for marble. A flame that doesn't go out, just shifts in the wind. You wake to the sound of coughing, your own. It scrapes your throat raw and rattles your ribs. A grim reminder that even the strongest torch flickers. You sit up slowly, every joint protesting, and pull the thin blanket tighter around your shoulders. The room feels colder than usual, even though the summer air outside is thick and warm. Your breath catches. You know this feeling. Something's wrong. You press a palm to your forehead. Warm, not yet burning. Your muscles ache more than usual, and your stomach twists in a familiar way. You've seen this before in other women. Sometimes they call it the work's revenge. Sometimes it's just bad food. Sometimes it's something worse. You reach for your jar of ointment. Garlic paste and honey, mixed with pig fat and sage. Auntie's recipe. You smear a bit under your nose and on your wrists. The scent is pungent, like a cursed stew, but it makes you feel protected, even if the protection is imaginary. That's the thing about Roman medicine. It's half hope, half hazard. There's no real doctor for women like you. Not unless you count the traveling herbalist with the missing toe, who once sold you a cure made of camel urine and crushed beetles. You didn't buy it. Syra did. She swore it worked for 3 hours. Then she vomited for 2 days. Most of the time, you rely on superstition. You chew licorice root for your throat. You burn rosemary. You tie a red thread around your left ankle to confuse the spirits. Auntie once gave you a charm shaped like a frog and told you to sleep with it under your pillow. You still do, because truthfully, fear is the most persistent companion of this job. Not the fear of men. Not exactly, that becomes predictable. But the fear of sickness, of losing your body, the one thing Rome lets you use to survive. Because here, illness doesn't come with sympathy. It comes with silence. Clients vanish. Pimps ignore you. Landlords stop answering knocks. You become invisible in a way that's far worse than before. Syra once lost her voice for a week. Her smile remained, but her words were gone. And suddenly, so were her clients. You shared your food with her until she recovered, both of you pretending not to notice the bruises blooming under her tunic. Rome doesn't pause for the unwell. You swallow another cough, rise to your feet, and reach for your clay cup. The water's stale, but it soothes your throat. You soak a strip of linen in it, press it to your neck, and breathe. You can't afford to be sick. Not now. You move slower today. Every motion a quiet rebellion against the ache. You wash your bedding in vinegar. You rinse your mouth with wine. You chew on mint leaves until your teeth feel numb. You light a stick of incense you've been saving for emergencies, not for clients, but for yourself. The scent fills the room. Warm, smoky, clean. For a moment, it feels like a temple. A temple with cracked walls and straw on the floor, but a temple nonetheless. Later, Syra knocks. She takes one look at your face and frowns. You look like Jupiter kissed you with a plague, she says gently, holding out a clay bowl. Inside is soup, thin broth, floating lentils, a slice of carrot. I traded a favor with the baker's wife, she shrugs. You don't ask what kind of favor. You just take the bowl and sip slowly, each mouthful anchoring you a little more in your body. You need a break, she says, sitting beside you. I need money. You'll need nothing if you die. You shoot her a look. She raises an eyebrow. Not trying to be poetic, just true. And she's right. But in this world, rest is a luxury. So you bargain with yourself. One night off, you promise. Just enough to clear your chest and still the ringing in your ears. You post a note outside your curtain. Chloris is unavailable. Come back tomorrow, or never. Up to you. It's a small act, but bold. Clients will knock anyway. Some will grumble, some will offer extra. You won't open the door. That evening, you curl up under your blanket, fingers clutching your frog charm, and whisper a prayer. Not to a god, but to your own stubborn heart. Keep beating. Keep breathing. Keep burning. You drift in and out of sleep. In one dream, you're lying in a field of herbs, warm sun on your skin. Cassianus is there offering you apricots. You laugh, and for once, it doesn't sound forced. In another, you're on a boat sailing down the Tiber. Hair loose in the wind, no curtain, no lamp, no room to clean. Just water and sky. You wake coughing, but calmer. The fever hasn't worsened. That's a good sign. You sip more water. You hum a little tune from childhood. Something your mother used to sing before the war, before the move to the city, before everything changed. You remember her hands, rough from work, soft when they held you. You wonder what she'd say if she could see you now. Maybe nothing. Maybe everything. Maybe she'd say, you are still you, and that's enough. The next morning, you step outside briefly, blanket wrapped around your shoulders like a stolen toga. The sun is gentle today, the sky a pale blue that makes everything feel less sharp. Livia spots you and runs over with a bundle. Fresh bread, a peach, a smile. I didn't know what you liked, she stammers. You reach out, touch her wrist lightly. This is good. She helps you back to your bed, tucks the peach near your pillow, and leaves without asking for anything in return. You feel it then. That rare, impossible thing in the Sabura. Grace. Not the kind sung about in temples. Not divine forgiveness. But human grace. Shared, quiet, real. And you realize, even when your body fails, your community won't. You are not alone. And tomorrow, when your voice returns and your lungs clear, you'll go back to work. But for tonight, you rest, because rest is resistance. And you have more battles ahead. The fever breaks before dawn. You wake soaked in sweat, curls of hair plastered to your face, but your lungs feel clearer. The pounding behind your eyes has dulled to a soft hum. You lie still for a moment, staring at the crack in the ceiling, the one shaped like a dolphin, and breathe. In. Outside. In again. You're alive. That shouldn't feel like a surprise, but it does. And in Rome, where breath is borrowed and time is taxed, surviving the night feels like victory. You rise slowly, peel off your damp tunic, and wash your body with vinegar and cold water, your teeth chattering the whole time. The chill stings, but it wakes something up in you. You scrub harder. Not just dirt, not just sweat, but the layer of invisible weight that's been pressing on your chest all week. Grief, exhaustion, the ache of being seen but not recognized. You dress in clean linen, light your oil lamp, and draw back your curtain. Let the world come in. And it does. Your first visitor isn't a client, but Auntie. She doesn't knock. She never knocks. She appears like smoke, already speaking as she crosses your threshold. Heard you tried to cough yourself into the afterlife. Waste of breath. No one's waiting up there with figs and laurels, trust me. You smirk. So warm, so nurturing. She grins. Drops a bundle at your feet. Dried herbs, a sliver of soap, and a small roll of bandage. What's the bandage for? In case you get hit with honesty. She sits, groaning as her knees crack, and begins combing your hair with her fingers. It's something she's done for years, not often, but always when you need grounding. When you feel more ghost than girl. She hums while she works. You don't talk about the job, or the fever, or Sylvanas. Instead, she tells you about a baker's daughter who tried to ride a mule backwards to impress a suitor. About a boy who fell in love with his reflection in the well. About a noblewoman who snuck into the Sabura just to listen to the street musicians, and left with a missing shoe and a tattoo she couldn't explain to her husband. You laugh, and the laughter feels real. After she leaves, you sit alone for a while, brushing your fingers over the herbs she left. There's lavender, sage, bay leaves, all symbols, all spells. None of them guaranteed, but all offered with love. And in a place like this, intent is the truest magic. By midday, you feel stronger. You fix your room, lay out clean linens, refill your perfume vial, dab a bit of powdered lead on your cheeks. Not too much. Just enough to catch the right kind of attention. And then you wait. Your first client arrives just past the 3rd hour. He's quiet, polite, brings a pomegranate and doesn't ask questions. You welcome him in, offer a warm look, and perform the dance you've perfected. Graceful, detached, gently attentive. After he leaves, you clean everything. Then you light a second lamp. The hours blur again, but not unpleasantly. You fall into the rhythm. Knock, open, smile, entertain, clean, repeat. But somewhere in the middle of it all, something shifts. You notice the moments between the transactions, the small glances, the breath before a name is spoken, the half-formed sentence before a client decides whether he wants conversation or silence. One man, older, reeking of wine and old regrets, asks if you remember him. You do, you remember everyone, but you shake your head. He smiles softly. Good. Means I didn't leave a mark. He leaves a silver coin more than required. You don't call him back. Another client asks for your real name. You lie, of course. Say Claudia, like you always do when men get poetic. But in your head, your real name echoes, just once. Just enough to remind you who you are beneath the role. And then there's the boy, barely of age. Skin like milk, hands trembling. He asks if you can pretend to love him. You don't respond. You just sit beside him, take his hand, and let him talk. He says he's afraid of dying, that his father expects him to marry soon, that he dreams of being a mosaic artist, but his hands shake too much. You tell him the truth. Everyone's pretending here. He stays longer than most. When he leaves, he places a single coin on the bench and says, "For listening." You nod, because that's all there is to do. After nightfall, you take a walk, just a short one, past the lupanar, past the tavern where Sura's voice is echoing in song, past the bakery with its warm stone walls and sleeping dogs curled by the coals. You walk with no purpose except movement, and as you move, you think about everything you've survived, the bruises, the betrayals, the plagues, the silences, the long nights when your hands wouldn't stop shaking, the mornings where you wanted to stay under the sheet forever and let Rome go on without you. But you didn't. You rose, you lit your lamp, you lived, even when no one saw it, especially then. And that quiet persistence, is worth more than any denarius dropped in your palm. You return to your room. There's a note waiting for you under the door. No name. Just a line scratched into old parchment. You don't know it, but you saved me. You stare at it for a long time. Then you tuck it into your wax tablet. Not as proof, not as pride, but as reminder. That what you do here matters. That in a city built on stone and spectacle, the soft things survive too. You settle onto your bench. Pull the blanket up to your chin. listen to the wind whistling through the broken tiles, and for the first time in a long while, you sleep deeply. The sun rises gold over Rome, slipping between cracked roof tiles and bouncing off dusty mosaic floors. You wake with the light already on your face, warm and kind for once, like even the sky's in on some quiet secret. Your body doesn't ache this morning. You stretch slowly, savoring the moment. It's rare, this feeling of not dreading the day ahead. No lingering fever, no bruises, no soul-deep weariness clinging to your ribs. Just breathe. Just sunlight. Just you. You reach for your bronze mirror and look. Your reflection stares back. Older than when you started, sharper than you once were, but still you. Still here. You smile at your own eyes. They've seen too much, but they haven't turned cold. That feels like a kind of miracle. Outside, the street is already buzzing. A cart creaks by with a load of amphora. Children scream at each other over stolen fruit. Someone's playing a flute badly again. Rome lives in noise, but you've learned to find silence within it. You step outside and stretch, arms high, feet bare on sun-warmed stone. Livia calls from across the alley, waving a crust of bread in the air. You wave back. She survived the night. So did you. You feel that connection again, that invisible thread running through every woman in this place. The ones who came before, the ones beside you, the ones yet to arrive. You all carry each other in whispered warnings, in borrowed tunics, in shared soup and stolen laughter. Later that day, a wealthy woman passes through the Sabura. You can tell she's slumming it by the way she lifts her skirt to avoid dust, like filth is contagious through fabric. She stops in front of your curtain. You don't recognize her, but she stares too long to be passing through. Are you Chloris? You blink. Yes. She steps closer, eyes narrowing. My husband mentioned your name. Ah, that kind of visit. You brace yourself. But then she surprises you. I just wanted to see what was so special. You meet her gaze. Don't flinch. Don't smile. Nothing, you say calmly. Nothing you don't have already. She watches you for another moment, then nods, turns, and leaves. You stand there stunned, not by her words, but by yours. Nothing you don't have already. It felt true, and cruel, and kind, all at once. Because the truth is, you never claim to be extraordinary. You're just real. And sometimes that's enough to unsettle people. That night, you light your lamps. Fresh oil, clean wick, a little dusting of powdered rose petals in the corner. Not for clients, for you. Auntie visits and drops off a carved charm of a cat. For independence, she says. And because you hiss at people now. You laugh so hard your stomach hurts. Your first client arrives just after dusk. He's young, too young. You send him away. The second is a regular. Quiet, always brings a piece of fruit. Never speaks unless you start the conversation. You let him in, not for the coin, for the balance, the familiarity. The third never knocks. Just walks past your door, glances in, and leaves. Not your problem. Later, you share figs with Kyra and talk about escape plans. I want to sail to Gaul, she says, mouth full. You frown. You hate boats. She shrugs. I also hate Rome, but here we are. You tell her your fantasy. Yeah, a tiny apothecary near the baths. Dried herbs, poultices, incense. Not glamorous, but safe. Quiet. She grins. You'd make a good witch. You nudge her with your foot. I am a witch. She howls with laughter. The last knock of the night is soft, polite, hesitant. You open the door. Cassianus, of course. He looks tired, older, but he smiles when he sees you. I was in the neighborhood, he says awkwardly. You nod. Step aside. No money exchanges hands tonight. You just talk. He tells you his wife moved to Baiae, that he dreams of becoming a winemaker, that he still carries that apricot pit in his pocket. You don't know what this is between you, but for now it's warm and untroubled. When he leaves, you stand at your doorway. watching the moonlight dance on the alley stones. You feel steady, not safe, not certain, but steady. You close the curtain, douse the lamp, and in the hush of your room, beneath the crack shaped like a dolphin and the graffiti that reads, "Chloris still speaking," you lie down with your heart intact. And that's the truest thing of all. And now, as the noise of Rome settles into whispers and the oil lamps burn low, your body grows heavy. The walls around you, cracked and familiar, soften at the edges. The straw beneath your back shifts just right. You exhale. Outside the alley quiets. Footsteps fade. Somewhere far off, a dog barks once, then stops. The scent of myrrh and rosemary still lingers, tucked into corners like old stories. You've made it through another day. And in this city of empires and excess, gods and glory, you, humble, human, and unnamed by history, carried yourself like a flame. Not bright, but steady and alive. You remember the hands you held, the laughter you shared, the tears you swallowed so no one would have to carry them for you. You remember how many times you started again. Every knock at the door, every rising sun, every whispered prayer to yourself when no gods were listening. You are not a statue, not a cautionary tale. You are real. And as your breath slows and the sounds of the city fade into a soft, steady hush, you feel yourself letting go. Not disappearing, just resting, because tomorrow will come. And when it does, you'll rise again. Still standing, still speaking, still you. Sleep now, love. The world can wait.